So just as way of introduction, I'm Tracey Lilley. I'm the Director for Communities and Health for Brentwood and Rochford District Council. And I'll introduce you to our leader, Councillor Chris Hossack. He'll introduce himself.
So good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out to join us. My name's Chris Hossack, and as Tracey said, I'm the leader at Brentwood Borough Council.
Thanks, Councillor Hossack. And Kathy?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kaye Kentish, and I'm Chief Exec for St Tobias in South Essex. Pleased to be here tonight.
And Kaye?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kaye Thurgood, Chair of the Brentwood Business Partnership, and I'm also a retailer. I own a shop in Shenfield.
Brilliant. So like we said, guys, this is really for you to get questions answered and us to respond as best we can. What I would say from a council perspective, I've been very clear that it's not what the council can do in response to the cost of living crisis. It's what we can do to make sure that there's support out there for people that need it at the earliest possible convenience to them so they can get that information. We have acted as a kind of coordinator, I suppose, an enabler to have those conversations. So we've got a dedicated web page where there's lots of information on it. We update it daily pretty much to make sure that it's relevant and you know, the right information for people. If anybody goes on our website and thinks there's something missing, then please let us know, and we'll make sure that we amend it accordingly. We've got an action plan in place, and we've also set up a really good working group where we're working with all of our partners, including citizen advice and the local businesses, the police, lots and lots of providers, the fire service, and it's really positive in terms of the steps that we're making. But to move us on, I've got the first question that has been posed to us, and I'll read the question out, and then I'll go to the leader on this one to answer the first part of it. So the first question is, will there be an increase in council tax and housing rents next year? If so, the large amount of the borough's current rent arrears for those in social housing, what will the borough do to protect those residents and alleviate the fear of eviction? Now, I'm going to go over to the leader to answer the first part around the council tax, and I'm happy to chip in on the housing and the rent arrears piece, because I did, in a former life, used to be Director of Housing before my new role. So, Chris, if you wanted to come in on that question.
Yeah, thanks, Tracey, and thanks to whoever asked the question. It's obviously the most pertinent question. So the short answer to the question is, will council tax increase this year? The answer is yes. Because we've factored into our budget already a 2% increase. So just to put council tax into a bit of context, because there's often a misunderstanding about this. You pay council tax, roughly speaking, according to the size of property you live in. So the sort of standard property size, what we call a Band D. So Band D is like a 3-4 bed semi sort of size house, and they go right through to H if you live in a large house, and they start sort of A to B if you live in a small sort of apartment type property. So if you live in a Band D property, you currently pay in total council tax around about £1,825 a month. Now, what a lot of people don't know is Brentwood Borough Council only take 12% of that amount. We collect all of it, but only 12% of it goes to Brentwood. So in terms of the current Brentwood amount you pay, currently, out of the total amount you pay, £198 roughly, maybe 199 quid goes to Brentwood Borough Council. And that funds the services that the council provides. So that will be street services, parks, play areas, collecting the rubbish, a lot of the administration and things that we do as well. So we've already based in to put that up from 198.63 up by 2%. That will go over the year to about £202, just over. So it works out around about a sort of 10-11 pence per week increase. And what that actually earns for the council is about £125,000 a year in terms of additional income. So that's what we know, and that's being upfront about what we've factored in. Recently, the government, you'll all remember there was a Chancellor's statement about a week or so ago now, and what the government did was it allowed local councils to increase council tax up to 3%. If we increase up to 3%, basically that would put about another 11 pence or so per week onto the council tax bill. So the short answer to your question is I can confirm it will go up at least 2%. If it goes up to 3, that's the maximum we can do. We can't do any more than that anyway. And that would, you'd be talking around about 11% increase if we do that on your current council tax bill. If you're a Band D taxpayer, if you're a Band H, you're paying more anyway. If you're a Band A to C, you'll be paying less than that. But that's kind of the average place where we pitch it. So I hope I've explained that reasonably well. You know, when you look at your council tax bill, 12% of that is Brentwood, roughly. And what I can't do, I can talk about what Brentwood will do with that portion of the tax. What I can't say is what the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner will do, because that's part of the rest of the tax bill for the fire service and policing. And of course, the big one is Essex County Council, who account for about 75% of the tax take. And of course, they have a bigger slice of it because they're funding the schools, particularly adult healthcare, all of the highways and some of the big ticket items. So I can't say what Essex are going to do. I can only tell you what Brentwood are going to do, which will be, I can tell you it'll be at least 2%, but it won't be more than 3%. In terms of rent, Tracy, just to touch on it, again, the government has capped it at 7%. But another part to that question I could see was about, you know, as we appreciate people are in difficult times, you know, what we don't want is people falling into arrears and definitely taking people down the eviction route. In fact, we try and avoid that because when people end up homeless, it just creates a whole set of other burdens. So, Tracy, do you want to touch on that a little bit again? Because we went through this particularly in COVID, didn't we?
We did, yeah. And I'll just keep it brief. We're very determined that we work in a proactive way with residents. And one of the things that we introduced during the pandemic, which was really helpful and much appreciated actually by quite a few of our residents, is we get in early. And that's one of the pleas I'm going to continue to make tonight in tonight's session. Don't wait until you're really in trouble and ask for help. We like to hear from people at the outset. We introduced a new system whilst I was Director of Housing a couple of years back, which actually helps. It's like an analytical system. So it can actually preempt somebody that's likely to fall into arrears. And we act quite quickly to stop that from happening. Because like Councillor Hossack said, one of the things, believe it or not, we don't want to do is evict anyone from their home. And there's no need to do that if we work together on it. So we've got the housing department worked really hard on the whole rent arrears piece. I want to assure people that that's something that we take very seriously, and no decision will be made until it goes through the budget setting process, and that, you know, our residents will be involved in that. And I don't know, Kathy, if you want to come in on any of that at all.
Yes, thank you. From a citizen advice perspective, we understand people are worried, aren't they, about cost of living and the effect that that's going to have on all of your bills, including council tax and rent. So we are here to try and help as many people as possible, so we can look at a benefit check to make sure that you're getting everything you're entitled to. But also we're here with debt advice as well. So if people are struggling financially, I'd echo what Tracey says. The earlier we can get to you, the earlier you can get to us, then the more options you've got. And there's always options, even when it feels like there isn't. So remember, we're here, and we'll make sure that links and phone numbers are put into the chat so that people have got those.
Brilliant. Thanks, panel. I hope this is helping people. We've had some really, really good questions, actually. And the next one is on how I can help people in my community who are finding this crisis really tough. And this actually warms my heart when I get stuff like this. And one of the things that we're really lucky in living in Brentwood is the fact that our communities really muster when they have to. And it's not a case of we all retreat into our homes and worry about ourselves. We actually all look to support each other. And we saw that through the pandemic. And I think we'll continue to see this through this new crisis that we're all facing. But one of the things that I'm going to say is volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. Because one of the things that's coming up in the conversations we're having around the support that's available and the signposting, quite frankly, that the council will do, will be signposting to our partners. But our partners, like the CAB, rely on volunteers to run. So I would put a plea out there to say, if you've got the time, then please volunteer. If you're interested in any volunteering opportunities, you can contact the organisations themselves, or the CVS locally have a volunteer database. So that's something. Also, you can look at donations if you can. So like the likes of Food Bank, if you can donate any food, but also just be a good neighbour. And we all do it, don't we? You know, I've got an elderly neighbour that lives next door to me that lost her husband in the pandemic. And she's quite, you know, clear that she doesn't need any help. But she'll often bring me a cup of tea and a Kit Kat if I'm out in the garden. But it's just being there for each other. But I'll hand over to Kathy, who might have some more to say on that topic.
So completely agree. I mean, Citizens Advice couldn't survive without its volunteers. They're worth their weight in gold. We are always recruiting. So if you or you know anybody who's interested in volunteering, yes, point them in our direction, but also all of the voluntary sector. They're all recruiting volunteers. And what you find is that you get a lot of training, a lot of support, and that can sometimes help people move on into employment later because it's something that they can add onto their CV, and they can at the same time be helping their local community, making such a valuable difference. So we welcome you with open arms.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kathy. And then another question is around our businesses. And sometimes, you know, that's a really lonely place. And I'm not going to take anything away from what Kaye is going to say. And this question is really important. What support is there for business owners who are feeling stressed and anxious? So, Kaye, I'm definitely handing over to you on that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, the message is don't feel alone. There's a lot of independent businesses across the borough. I'm one, and I know what it feels like. And I get a lot of help and support from the other members of the Brentwood Business Partnership. So what we do is we're an independent group. We receive sponsorship from Tees and Beresfords, and we work in collaboration with Brentwood Borough Council. We can tap into all of the available resources at the council. We know how to direct people to the right people to speak to, and we know how people feel. So what I would suggest is make contact with the Brentwood Business Partnership. You can find us on brentwoodbusinesspartnership.co.uk. You can email me directly at info@partnership.co.uk. I'll come back to anybody. I'm very, very happy to talk to anybody who needs that support, and a metaphorical sort of arm around the shoulder, because I know what it feels like. And the most important message is don't feel alone. Speak out, and we can probably find someone who can help you. You're on mute, Tracey. I'm trying to lip read.
It wouldn't unmute me. It wouldn't let me mute that up. I don't know if that's a sign that I'm talking too much. But yeah, I saw something the other day about, you know, a lot of kind of restaurants and stuff like that. They already struggled in the pandemic, and they're struggling to get staff and everything else, and they're looking to close. So it is a really difficult time, but there is lots of help out there, like Kaye said, and she's fantastic, by the way. So she'll always help out where she can. And being somebody that is a small business owner, you know, you're getting really good information. So another question that came in was, are there any local networks, this is around businesses again, are there any local networks that business owners can tap into for support, information and advice? And that's back to you, Kaye, I think. Pretty much the same kind of answer, really. I mean, the other option that people have is to join the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce. There is a membership fee attached to that, but you can seek out the Chamber of Commerce for other ways of getting help and support. But at Brentwood Business Partnership, we can certainly point you in the right direction. There are, there's support with the energy bill relief scheme, which is running from October till March next year. That support should come directly to business owners through their energy supplier, and there's going to be lots of support with business rates for retail, hospitality and leisure sectors. So currently we're on a 50% relief, and that's going to be going to 75% relief from April next year. And the big fear that I personally had was that was actually going to go to zero relief. So it's very, very, very welcome. So we are getting support from the government.
Depends what sector you're in, of course, but if you're in retail, hospitality and leisure, that support will be coming through directly to you, either through the energy relief scheme or through the business rates relief scheme. But if anybody wants any further information, as I said, reach out to Brentwood Business Partnership and we'll help you where we can and we'll point you in the right direction.
Perfect. Thanks, Kaye. And this is, I'll try and alternate between questions that have been submitted, and I'm conscious that we need to answer those because they were submitted ahead of time. But there's one that's come in to us whilst we've been live, and it's for you, Kathy, and it's a good one, actually. Given that the general advice to people is to contact CAB for support, are you able to meet the potential demand, and how quickly will people be seen? It kind of ties back into the need for people to help out with CAB, but I'll hand over to you.
I completely understand why people are asking this question. So Citizens Advice is a name that everybody recognises and trusts. And that means the demand for our services are huge. We're all aware of those challenges. So I can't give you a waiting time, but what I can say is that we're talking to Essex County Council about launching an out-of-hours telephone service in order to try to increase our capacity to help meet that increased demand. So we are mobilising at the moment, and we should have a phone number, separate phone number for this, and it should be launching before Christmas. So it should be there for when everybody is struggling, unfortunately, after Christmas. It'll be in the evenings between 4 and 8 p.m, weekday evenings, and Saturday mornings 9 till 1. And that's across Essex, not just in Brentwood. But I reiterate, we are very conscious that we need more volunteers in order to try and meet the demand that's out there. So the more people that come along and volunteer, the more people we can help in our local community.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kathy. And then we've got another question that was posed before we started, which was, and it's a really, really good one, and it actually resonated with me, and I went on to check for myself. So this is one of the things I'm passionate about, and I'm not going to wax lyrical about this because I want to get as many questions answered as we can. But one of the fears I have about the cost of living crisis is, yes, we have vulnerable people that are in social housing or on benefits, but we're also going to see a whole new raft of people become vulnerable. So it will be the likes of working families and those people that have never had money worries before. And they're going to be first-time entrants into this crisis as it is, and the horrible situation that faces us all. And my plea, again, I've said it before, is get help at the very, very beginning. Don't sit back and think, oh, it'll get easier in a couple of months. Oh, I'll just pay that this month and I won't do that this month. Just please, please, please get help, because we're definitely trying to remove the stigma around it, because we're all in this together. But this question was brilliant. And is there any help available for families that are not in receipt of benefits or not classed as having low incomes, 2 working parents, heavy childcare costs and mortgage increases of 50%? Just personally speaking, I went and looked at mine today because mine doesn't, my fixed deal doesn't expire till June, but you can, a lot of mortgage companies now are letting you do that 4 months in advance, and the rates are not too critical at the moment. What some of the mortgage lenders are saying is that they're actually reluctant to put them up too high, because what you're going to get is you're going to put those rates up. People are not going to be able to pay the mortgage. They're going to get repossessed, and the mortgage company are not going to get their debt back anyway. So they're looking at a kind of short-term loss. We've got information on our website, but definitely speak to Revs and Bens to see if there is any benefits that you're entitled to, because you never know. And there is no harm in asking. It's not, it's not an embarrassment. Even when I went on to my mortgage broker today, it said we're experiencing a high demand of calls. So we're all doing it. So you're definitely not alone, but this is definitely one for Kathy. So I'll hand over to you if that's all right.
Okay, thanks, Tracey. So, okay, yeah, I get this situation. It's a good question, and you can probably feel like you're on your own and there's no help out there. It's a tough one because mortgages are going to go up. It's going to be inevitable. If you've been on a 2 or a 5 year fixed and it's coming up for renewal now or next year, it is looking like the payments are going to be increasing quite dramatically. So what help is out there? In terms of energy-wise, there is help for everybody. You don't have to be on benefits. So everybody gets the £400 energy discount. So this is off of your electricity bill. You don't have to apply for it. It is put on there automatically between October and next March. So a certain amount off each month. I know energy prices are way higher, but at least it's a little bit of help for everybody. You've also got the energy price guarantee. Now, please don't think this means that it's capped at $2,500 per annum, and it doesn't matter how often you put the heating on or turn the lights on. It's capped, but on the average use. So it's the tariff that is capped. So the more energy you use, you'll still pay more for your bills. But an average household should be capped at £2,500 per annum. Again, I completely understand that that's way more than we're all used to paying, you know, even a year ago. So what I would also say is if you're struggling, exactly what Tracey said, the earlier you can get help, the better, more options. We have a money advice helpline. So this is a local number. We can put it in the chat, but it's 01277 35 8082. That's 01277 35 8082. That has a voicemail facility. So if you're worried about racking up costs on the phone bill, you can leave a voicemail. We'll give you a call back. And we are there, the debt specialists are there to help, not only if you're already in arrears, but they can help with money saving tips, what we consider, excuse me, talk too much, financial capability, budgeting advice, top money saving tips. So trying to save people money as well. Hopefully that helps.
Brilliant.
Tracey, can I just come in on that? Because that was a useful update as to where we are now. But as we know, we had that autumn statement on the Friday. And just maybe, I don't know if a question was going to come in, but looking forward in terms of changes that are going to happen beyond April next year, the new tax year. Kathy's right about the current cap on energy, but that's going to increase to 3,000 from next April. And there's a few other benefits that are coming in that are probably just worth talking through. Again, these will kick in from April next year. So those that are on means tested benefits will receive a £900 cost of living payment from April next year. So there's additional government support coming in from that. And also pensioners will receive an extra £300. So there's a lot of money going in for different categories of people. Disabled households will receive another £150. So basically what this is saying is even if you're not on benefits or claiming universal credit, these extra monies that are coming in from April could represent quite a significant contribution towards offsetting the cost of bills. So there is some money, further money that's coming in from April in the new tax year that the government promised last week.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. We have had a question posed online, and I will pose it because, you know, in the bit of openness, I'm not sure we're going to be able to answer it necessarily, but I'd like the council to clarify the link between poverty and crime. Is solving the poverty problem the first step towards dealing with rampant crime in our cities? Why or why not? Now, from my perspective, I believe that it is linked, to be fair. I mean, not all people that are in poverty go out and commit crime. You know, there are serious organised criminals amongst us, but it's definitely got to be linked. And I'm not trying to deflect here, but we're very lucky in Brentwood, particularly because it is an affluent area, you know, and we don't have any major areas of deprivation. But I think it is a societal issue in a sense that, you know, those in poverty have less opportunity. So that can then encourage a lack of prospects. They can get drawn into other issues. So I do think, and this is what I like about the way that we work with our partners in Brentwood, it's that collaboration, because it's no one agency's give, if you like, to solve all of these issues. And it's easy to say that crime is crime and the police have to deal with the crime. Actually, we need to look at, and it was something that we're learning through our health colleagues around the causes of the causes And I had a presentation at our community safety partnership only yesterday from our health colleagues, and we're changing the way we operate, I suppose, and being more collaborative. And one of the parts of the presentation was around, somebody presents with a heart problem, and our health colleagues would look at it and they'd look at dealing with that heart problem. But actually, what is the cause of that heart problem? Is it because they are a heavy smoker, or their diet, or whatever the situation is for them personally? But then it's the causes of the causes. So is it employment? Is it housing? And you can't solve all of that unless you work together. So I know I'm not probably answering it as succinctly as you would like, because it's not necessarily my area of expertise, because it's not something that we've come across before. But I think with the whole, cost of living crisis, it's going to become more evident that people are going to step into that kind of poverty bracket. So I think it's for all agencies to look at solving, so that we have better opportunities for our young people, and we have better care for our elderly residents, and we can access the care that we need it. And we've all got, as much opportunity as we can. So I don't know if anybody wants to come in on that.
Tracey, do I dare come in on that? What an entirely philosophical question that is. Look, let's try and put it in context. First of all, crime is a choice, and there are a lot of wealthy people that commit crime. Okay. I think what is more than likely, and I'm not more than likely, I'm sure it's happening, people who are very hard up on the bread line, where they can't afford to get a loaf of bread, a pint of milk, whatever else, the basics they need. We do hear about parents, single parent families, particularly under pressure, foregoing meals so they can feed the kids and send the kids to school or something. When you're in that situation, I think low level crime such as shoplifting, you would likely see an increase. But, crime is such a broad spectrum. I think, low level crime, probably certainly of the type I've described. But, crime happens in times of affluence, in times, crime happens with wealthy people. I think there is a correlation, but you can't blame all crime on poverty, because crime is a choice. I think there's necessary, I'm not going to say necessary crime, that'd be wrong, but you can understand why certain people would commit certain crimes in times of economic hardship. But the thing to say to that is, actually, crime's a vicious circle. If you're hard up and you nick something to get by, and then you get pinched for it, and then you end up with a criminal record, and then you find it hard to get a job, you just don't want to put yourself in this situation. So the advice is there, please resist the temptation, because it's on the shelf, and use some of the support that's there in the volunteer groups, food banks. You don't need to steal food if you can go and get given it. But if you're driven to that level of desperation, I fully understand why it can happen. But again, it's a really broad question. I don't think there's a direct correlation, because different people with different levels of income commit crime for completely different reasons. And so I can only put it in terms of that likely low level sort of crime you might see happen as we go into this difficult time.
Great, thanks, Chris. Kaye.
Yeah, I'll come in on this as a retailer, because I've been a retailer for 14 years, and I don't see much shoplifting. I haven't done over those years. I've seen a lot more of it recently, but I can't honestly say that the profile of the person that's shoplifting is always somebody that's living in poverty. I mean, I've caught shoplifters that clearly aren't. And as Chris said, it's a choice to commit that crime. What I would say from a retail point of view is it's just going to drive the prices up. So independent retailers can't themselves cover the cost of that level of shoplifting. There's a lot of very small retailers across the borough, but there's also some larger names. But rest assured, there will be a price to pay for this, and that will then affect everybody. But to answer the actual question, I don't think, and from in my experience, that the profile fits the crimes that I've certainly seen.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kaye. Kathy?
Thanks, Tracey. I'm not going to attempt to answer the question, because I'm not qualified to answer about the links to crime and poverty. What I'm going to address here is the poverty element of this. So, you know, as Citizens Advice, we are here to try and alleviate poverty wherever possible. And what we often find when we get clients come in is that we can do a benefit check, and a lot of people are entitled to benefits that they're not claiming. So we can help them claim those benefits. Sometimes we can get backdated benefits as well. So I'm not saying I can wave a magic wand and resolve poverty. Obviously we can't, but we can help. And we see a lot of clients, you know, who can get things like attendance allowance. This can be a large amount of money each week that can make a dramatic difference to their income and their household income. So hopefully it will inspire a few people to contact Citizens Advice or other organisations like us who can help check and maximise your income for you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I mean, that was a tricky question, but I didn't want to leave it unanswered. I think we're very lucky in Brentwood that we have, you know, we live in an affluent borough with lots of help and support and good partnerships. We've got a very good community safety partnership here. We now have, I don't know, for those of you that know, obviously the police station is within the town hall building, but we've also got a partnership hub where officers of the council, police, partners such as probation, Essex County Fire and Rescue Service, South Essex Parking Partnership, they all sit, and there's a weekly tasking which involves all of our partners and representatives from licensing and environmental health, and they look at emerging trends and issues that have come up. So I just want to reassure people that Brentwood is a really safe place. The fear of crime is actually worse than the actual crime itself, but anybody that's a victim of crime, it's an awful thing, and it's never going to be without its incident, but it is a really safe borough. So I just wanted to reassure people of that. And I think, believe it or not, I've run out of questions. Now I can fill a gap of half an hour, but we probably wouldn't want that. So if anybody's got any questions, please put them in the chat facility and we'll do our best to answer them. But I would just use the opportunity of no questions left at the moment to just say, like I said at the beginning, visit our website. You know, there's a mind of information on there. We've focused it around 5 key areas, which is support with money and bills, support with food, support with well-being, go green around energy efficiency, and support with work. We've got as much on there as we can. As my team know, I quite often at the weekend, I'll be Googling something and then I'll message a team going, have we got that on the website? Make sure it's on there. If there's any of our partners actually on the call, and I know that there are a couple, please have a look. And if there's anything that you think we're missing or that we can add to the information that we have, because we really want to have as much on there as possible so that people can get the help at the earliest possible opportunity. And I don't know that we have. Oh, yeah.
Just another thing, you know, we're sort of talking about cost of living, obviously. And we have a lot of people who are working on minimum wage or living wage. And the other thing, just people may or may not be aware of it, but again, in April next year, that national living wage is going to go up pretty much by 10%. So effectively, if you're on that sort of living wage now, you're on about £9.50 an hour, and that will pretty much go up £1, so around about 10.42 an hour from next April as well. So that whole low threshold is the minimum that people can be paid is also going to increase, and that should help people who are in the sort of the lowest paid jobs from April next year. So I think that's an important thing to just mention as well if people weren't aware of it.
Yeah, that is a really good response. I've got another couple of questions and they kind of merge into one really. So one of the questions from one of our guests is, what advice do you have for how to support elderly and vulnerable families or neighbours during the cost of living crisis? And I think we've kind of touched on that a lot, and I personally think it's just about being that support. Some of the things that we're doing is we're going out there directly with our partners, and you'll see, you know, they'll be posted on our website, because one of the things that we're conscious of is a lot of the information is digitally available, and we're trying to make sure that we've got a digital campaign and it's got a hashtag of by your side. So if you see that by your side, then if you're able, you can click on a QR code. But we're also very conscious that not everybody has access to the internet or is online or is comfortable being online. So we're taking that out to the communities. So that those kind of dates will be published. We have a community trailer that we use to really good effect, so that will be going out there. And where I say it ties into the next question, which is around what we're doing around warm hubs and where are they. For those of you that don't know, Essex County Council fairly early on started a mapping exercise across the whole county of what was available and what can be made available, and how we can develop, whether it's a warm hub, warm space, they're called various different things in different locations. But what we've done at the moment is we've gone out to all of our partners and kind of agencies that are out there already, and we're actually mapping the warm spaces that are available in Brentwood, and that will be on our website. So you can go on there, because as well, we had a struggle. We've got about 15, because believe it or not everybody can, even though they're very dedicated, our voluntary sector, and they want to do more, it's very difficult because they have to pay for the heating and everything else. So we've got about 15 sites, and that will be on our website, like I said. But what we're trying to do is offer just a list of opportunities and facilities that are there, because not everybody wants to go to a warm hub or a warm space because they might feel there's a stigma attached to it. So it might be that there's something going on in a community centre, and we will put a list on there saying this is what's available on this day. You can grab a coffee, you can do this, you can do that, you can do it. If you choose to go there for that activity, then that's absolutely fine. It's not that you're going there to warm yourself up, in a sense, because there is no stigma, but I appreciate that people have that attached to it. And Essex County Council have allocated some funding to it, so we're trying to signpost those partners to that fund. And I'll bring in Kathy, because otherwise it would just be me talking the whole time.
Tracey, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It was when you were so a couple of things to add to that. So Citizens Advice has a project called Warm Homes, and it's a lovely question, isn't it? Because if you're worried about elderly or vulnerable neighbours, then please signpost them to our Warm Homes project. Again, we can often help by looking at maximising their income, applying for benefits, but other energy efficient measures that may be entitled to. We can put the details into the chat of how you contact it. In addition, we were talking about warm spaces, warm hubs. So all of the libraries are warm spaces, warm hubs. And they also offer, they have to offer, to be a warm space, they have to offer hot drink. Not sure whether you get biscuits or not, but that'd be an added bonus. So it is supposed to be a nice welcoming place that people can spend a bit of time. I don't think any of them have been too busy at the moment, but although it may feel cold today, it's actually not that cold yet, is it? It's going to be after sort of Christmas and into the new year, but I suspect more people will be venturing out then to go into the warm spaces and enjoy a little bit of time away from home where it is warm.
Thanks, Kathy. And I'd kind of link that back to what we're doing for our elderly and and our neighbours. Maybe take them to a warm space or a warm hub for a coffee, or don't even say that, just take them out for a coffee. It's just being there for each other, isn't it? And I'll give a shout out to Brentwood Baptist Church. They'll be opening a warm hub twice a week. So there we go. And like I keep saying, and I'm not just saying it for saying its sake. We are really, really lucky in Brentwood. We have great partners and great support from residents. And we saw it in the pandemic, and it's continued. Just for example, during the pandemic, we established a community support hub, which is all the networks of the churches and all the voluntary groups that we have and groups that were set up during the pandemic. And that's continued. And that's credit to all those people that sit around that virtual table. They still meet regularly and discuss how they can do good for the residents of Brentwood. We've had another question.
Tracey, can I just come in on the warm hub thing, just to add to it? Where these, we'll start, as you've just done, start to promote places and locations that are doing it, times that are doing it, etc., which is good because it gets people out of the house. If they're on their own, it means they don't have to be heating the house there on their own, and they can get out and they can socialise, and it helps all that thing about isolation and all that sort of stuff. But one of the things we're also looking to do is, and it doesn't apply to anyone on this call because we're all on the internet here on Zoom, but there is still a proportion of the population, typically the older people, more elderly people, and it's a little phrase that we talk about called digital exclusion. And what we're trying to do is if a lot of information now is all available online. I know we've been putting stuff out, including phone numbers, but a lot of information is online. But if you're not really very savvy with the internet and using your smartphone and those sort of things, it's not easy to access it. So one of the things we're looking to do is in one of these warm hubs from time to time is the kids who are super savvy on mobile phones, the internet, everything else, get them to come in and sit with perhaps the older people who are digitally not as au fait with things, and get the kids to help the old people with the use of their smartphone, how to access the internet to go and find information and signpost them to different websites, and also using apps on the phone that might be helpful, and trying to help people who don't usually use that stuff or are afraid to use it or just don't understand it to actually do that. So we're trying to, when we get people together for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, whatever it is in a warm hub, try and put something on that's beneficial to them as well. So they go out of there not only having warmed up, met somebody and chatted with somebody and socialised, but also maybe having learned something. And I think the opportunity to bring kids together and with older people and bridge that sort of divide is, so we're trying to be creative, not just say there's a place, go over there and get warm, but try and actually offer something of value to it at the same time. So that's just to share a couple of the thoughts we've got. I know Kim in our organisation will sort of is already reaching out to schools, and we've got a willingness from schools to do it, but we just need to get the venue, get the location and make it happen. So that's just to add a little bit more about the warm hubs. Let's come along and learn something as well as do all the other positive things that we'll offer.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many opportunities. I mean, I'm going back a few years now. It's probably 10 years ago. We introduced senior safety days, because one of the things that we're quite conscious of is it's not just about, in this crisis, keeping warm. It's social isolation. So what we did is we brought elderly residents together in key locations across the borough. We used community transport to give them lifts to get them in. We involved the schools. And what we had was, and we wasn't sure at the time how to do it, but we had the young people from St Martin's actually. And I never forget the young man's name. His name was Billy, and he could really play the piano. And he played old tunes on the piano, and the elderly attendees were singing along. We had them making tea, and maybe we'll look at bringing that back alongside everything else that we're doing. One of the things that housing are doing actually is resident lounges, where you could, they're going to go a bit like I don't know what you call it. It's like a vox pop. No, it's not even a vox pop. I don't even know what I was trying to be smart there and young, but I'm clearly not. But what they'll do is they'll go to key locations and use facilities that we have and actually set up some kind of area like a lounge, like someone's lounge. The heating will be on, there'll be tea, there'll be someone to chat to. So that's another opportunity. And I think Manor Meals have just come in and said they're providing free lunches, coffee mornings and frozen meals in Brentwood. So they're another fantastic group that was set up during the pandemic. I'm going to go back on a question, and I appreciate you've already touched on this, but this person may have been late joining us. But is the council tax to rise significantly next year? I know you've already answered it, Chris, but if you wanted to just quickly say a response to that so that person gets an answer to their question.
Was the question, will it rise significantly?
Yeah.
No, it won't. I mean, I said earlier on, I don't want to repeat everything, but the Brentwood's portion of the council tax is only about 12% of everything we collect, which is about, on a Band D property, which is an average size property, about 198 quid. If we put that up 2%, it works out, it will go up by about 4 quid a year. So do the maths, it's not much per week. The government have said it was generally capped at 2% effectively. The government said we can go up to 3%. We haven't decided yet to do that, but what I'm saying is the maximum will be 3% if we choose to do that when we set our budget. To be honest with you, I'm going to get into this a little bit. If we go to 3% above 2%, that means the income to the council through taxation for Brentwood portion of the tax is about 60 grand a year. Frankly, it doesn't touch the sides. And let me just share this with you. There's a cost of living crisis for the council, actually. So the cost of diesel fuel, just for one example that comes to mind, has gone through the roof. As we all know, it's difficult for us to fill our cars and vans. But we run every day of the week heavy goods vehicles in the form of bin lorries all over the borough every single day. And our fuel bill has gone up, pushing, well, it's definitely in 6 figures. It's over £250,000 our diesel fuel bill has gone up alone. So, I don't want to put tax up. The council doesn't want to put tax up. But we equally have to recognise that our costs have gone up as well, both in the heating of our buildings and across our estate. And then the other thing we've done this year, I know a lot of our staff are union members, and the unions negotiate pay on behalf of its members. And we've just agreed, we will be agreeing to what the union's claim was effectively. We've agreed to their recommendations, and that's going to cost the council about £500,000 because we want to support our own staff, some of whom are on low wages as well. And we need to support them. So there's an across the board pay award to support our own staff. So if I just talk diesel and pay, there's £750,000. But if we put the tax up to 3%, it gets us another 60,000 more than we've already budgeted for. The short answer to the story is it doesn't fill the gap. Our income and expenditure gap at the moment for this year is £1.4 million. What does that mean? It means we spend 1.4 million and we get in either taxation revenue or commercial revenue. So 60 grand, I don't even want to put it, part of me doesn't want to put it up because what's the point? It doesn't even touch the sides. But on the other hand, 60 grand is in the council coffers, can be used to help the community in some way at the same time. So anyway, blooming long answer to the question, but the short answer is it's, in my view, if you look at the total tax collected, it's a big number. But if you look at the actual cost to the individual who's paying the tax per week, it works out about between 10 and 15 pence, depending on what we do, whether it's 2% or 3%. 2% definite, 3% to be decided.
Thank you, Councillor Hossack. I'm conscious that we've now got a whole raft of questions coming in and we're running out of time, so I'll try and be quick. What support is there for young people and students during this stressful time? Really good question, and I'll bring Kathy in. But what I would say from our perspective, we have fantastic relationships with the schools. Actually, the schools representatives attend our community safety partnership meeting, and they were there yesterday, but we also have a separate schools liaison meeting, and there's an awful lot of support through the schools, and we also fund some activities in the schools around mental health and wellbeing for our students. But I'll bring Kathy in and I'll stop talking.
That's fine. So young people and students can contact Citizens Advice. We're not there just for over 18s. We can help younger people as well. But if you're a student or you know a student at university, all the universities have got hardship funds. A lot of them are putting additional monies into their hardship funds. So, for example, there's a local one that has increased their hardship fund by 60%. So it is always worth asking them and applying for some money from the hardship fund. And then we've put into the chat, the government website has got a student finance extra help element that talks through, because some students are entitled to benefits, not many, admittedly, but some are. So it's always worth having a look there as well to see what additional help you can get.
Tracey, okay. Can I chip in?
Yeah.
Off the press, right? So everyone says, oh, there's never a youth club in Brentwood. Well, tomorrow afternoon at the Hermit Club, which is on Shenfield Road in Brentwood, a youth club is being launched, run out of the Hermit on a Friday evening. So they're launching from 3 o'clock tomorrow. It's the 21 Up movement. I won't be cool and try and do their little thing. It's kind of like that, but you probably can't see it. Anyway, there's a youth club starting tomorrow from the 21 Up movement. The guy called Perry runs it. He's a cool bloke. He's really great with young people. And it's just about getting together and discussing ideas and getting on a positive path and finding things you can do. You know, there's lots of things for kids to do, and there's lots of affordable things for kids to do. Earlier this year, Brentwood Centre, an amateur boxing club opened up. There's hardly a charge for kids, and there's concessions for kids that maybe got parents in difficult financial situations. They can go and do that because there's people out there to support. So there's just a little hot off the press. 3 p.m. tomorrow at the Hermit Club on Shenfield Road. A new youth club is opening up, which would be on Friday evening.
To what we've been saying all along, and it's about knowing what's out there, because I know that there are cosy clubs out there. I know there's Time to Talk that operates from the Hermit as well. So there is stuff out there. So like I say, I'll say to you and refer you back to our website. But this question came in, and let me just find, because it's jumped up. So I've lost the actual question itself. But it was for a question for you, Councillor Hossack, and it kind of ties into what you were saying earlier on about the resources that, you know, are limited resources that we have. But what in the pocket support is the council providing during the cost of living crisis?
What cash money is the council giving to people who are in difficult financial positions? Is that what I'm? Well, the answer is
I
no.
think that's what. Yeah.
I've just said we've got a £1.4 million budget gap. So what happens is any money that comes down, any money that we can distribute, as we did in COVID, all came from central government. So when we were supporting businesses, and Kaye might want to comment on this, but has the council got cash to give away for people who are in difficult positions, paying their gas bill and everything else? No, we haven't, because we're an indebted organisation ourselves. So our focus is on funding the council to keep delivering core services. Waste collection is a simple and obvious example. But if we didn't do that, or we start cutting that, then that starts to have impact on our community. So any money that we distribute is only if the government send it down to us centrally, because we don't operate with a big budget like that. We simply don't. So when we were distributing money during COVID to businesses to help them keep the doors open, we were allocating the cash, but the cash was coming from the government onto us for onward distribution to businesses. So as much as I'd love the council to be a bank and to give out loans, we're not in a position to do so.
Well, I'm really conscious of time, but I don't know, Kaye, if you wanted to come in that from a term like in respect of small businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. There is going to be, additional relief for business rates next year for those businesses that qualify. So that's those in retail, hospitality, and leisure will be receiving a 75% relief on their business rates for the next business rates term, which starts April 2023, and that will run until March 2024. And that's very, very helpful. Energy relief scheme is the other one, but apart from that, we can't get any funding from the council, because the council doesn't have it to give. What the council will do is administer the package of support with regard to business rates. But apart from that, there's not really any in the pocket funding that's available.
No, that's a really good point. And this kind of ties into the conversation that we're actually having at the moment. And it's probably going to be the last question that we can get to, which is how can we help Brentwood indie businesses this Christmas? Well, and I think I'll hand over to Kaye.
It's a very interesting point, this, because we talk a lot about the residents of the borough struggling, the businesses across the borough struggling, and it's a cliche. We really are all in this together. And I would just ask the local community, if they have money to spend, please spend it in your local business, in your local businesses, in your independent businesses. For all the money that is being spent online, that's money that's coming out of the borough. If we want a prosperous borough, then we need to be putting money back into it and recycling that money. Small independent retailers are employers as well. It's about keeping the whole economy in the borough, and that's driven by customers coming in and spending their money in the local businesses. I mean, we do have a lot of events going on in the next few weeks. There is some businesses have got Black Friday offers, so not all offers are online. Some of them are available across the borough. We've got Small Business Saturday coming up on the 3rd of December, and you will find that there are some retailers offering incentives to come and support the businesses in the borough. And then we do have a run of free events across the borough. So if people, are a little bit fed up and want to get out and join in with a bit of community spirit, we've got Lighting Up Brentwood this Saturday. That's always a fantastic day. The events are free. We've got the Shenfield Christmas Fair on Sunday, the 4th of December. Again, that's a free event. And we have the Ingatestone Christmas Market on the 11th of December. So I'd urge people in the community, talk to your neighbours and get out and support those, because you will be supporting independent businesses in the process.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kaye. Well, we're almost at time, but I've just notice there is one last question, which is, and I'm not sure we can answer this, but will Essex County Council increase council tax by 5%? I don't know the answer to that question.
I can't speak for Essex County Council.
No.
I can't really answer that, I'm afraid. I said that earlier. I can't. If you look at the total amount of tax that we collect as Brentwood, 75% of that is for Essex. And the reason they do that, let's just put it this way, you know, it's a well-known story that the pressures in adult social care are huge, and the deficits that county councils across the country are facing in terms of trying to provide that absolutely vital service. If you start to unfund that, you're going to have massive problems for vulnerable people. So I'm not going to say they're going to put tax up, but I know that county councillors, many county councils, are under pressure to sustain these services through funding. And I can't really say any more than that, really.
No, I think it's just, it's like we talked about this evening. It's a really difficult time for everybody, not just, you know, members of our community and us as members of the public, but for public sector, it's really difficult. Our funding's being cut, and this is not a poor sob story, but we're really passionate, and I can only speak for Brentwood and our partners that we work with, but I know how passionate people that I work with are about doing the right thing and supporting the residents. It's not always easy and we don't always get it right, but one of the things that we're trying to do, and I didn't want to make the cost of living being the director responsible for it, or our response to it, I didn't want to make it about the council. It's about the residents, and it's about the agencies and the partners that we work with, ensuring that we can get the support where it's most needed. And that's not us trying to deflect. It's about us making sure that the information is there for people when they need it, how they need it, at the quickest possible time they need it. So I think we're pretty much coming to an end now. I hope everybody's found it informative. I think there's some feedback forms going around afterwards, so please feel free to say how amazing the host was. No, I'm joking. But yeah, if you think that you've really benefited from it and you'd like to see some more, even more targeted, we're not the experts here. We're just trying to do the best thing and get information out there and support out there. So if there's anything else that you want to ask us, please feel free to use the information that's provided to you in terms of contact details. Visit our website, visit our partners' websites, give us a call, email us, whatever. We're here to help.